Hello there and welcome to this month's Horror Talk. So, of course, the camera a bit back there. So, of course, it is Friday the 13th of July, and I thought I would do a Friday the 13th Horror Talk. Now, I did do a Horror Talk on the Friday the 13th series back in October, but I didn't have as many subs as I do now back then, and also the quality of picture was a bit crap, so I thought I would redo it. So here we go. I have my Freddy vs. Jason top on again to mark it. So let's get going with the Friday the 13th franchise. So of course, I won't bore you with all the boring stuff. So it all started back in 1980. Writer Victor Miller and director Sean S. Cunningham came together and made the first film in the franchise, Friday the 13th. So, this was meant to be a revenge thriller of course, Pamela Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer, out on a revenge mission to stop the Camp Crystal Lake from ever being opened again. And, of course, she goes through with murdering some teenagers that were camp counselors that were supposed to be watching her boy Jason. And of course, that was in 1958 when she killed, and a year before in 1957, poor little Jason drowned. So Friday the 13th, it's, like I just said, was written by Victor Miller and directed by Sean S. Cunningham, and it starred Betsy Palmer as Pamela Voorhees, Adrienne King as Alice, who became the final girl in this film, with Harry Crosby and Laurie Barton or something, Mark Nelson, Jenny Taylor, Robbie Morgan, and Kevin Bacon, a young Kevin Bacon as well, should I remind you, and also Ari Lehman as Jason in this. So the first film, of course, if you're a Friday fan like me, you know that Jason was not in the original film. He wasn't even the killer, and he was only around in flashback sequences, and that's bald and deformed, because I believe he suffered a condition called hydrocephalus, which was a condition where fluid builds in the brain causing hair loss and head swelling, and yeah, he just wasn't treated nicely, and I get why Pamela Voorhees' mother went out on a violent rampage and avoided the camp from ever being opened, because when in the film when they're attempting to reopen Crystal Lake, the summer camp and that, the local nutter Ralph warns one of the girls going to Crystal Lake, it's got a death curse, you're all doomed. Ralph, who was only ever in the first two, I'm surprised he wasn't a reoccurring character, or maybe they didn't think that through until they killed him off. Also, another fact here is Jason was originally meant to be called Joshua Voorhees, but they changed it because, I don't know, they didn't like it or something, which in my opinion is kind of for the best. But yeah, I mean, I loved Friday the 13th, and I think the sequels got better, and of course the film does end where everyone's dead, including Kevin Bacon, and Alice, the final girl, she survives obviously, and then just when we think the O'Cavall is here and the terror is all over from the night before, Jason jumps out of the lake and drags her under the water, which was a memorable scene from that film. And of course, we find out that's a dream sequence, and Alice is like, the boy at the lake, and then the police are like, there was no boy. And of course Jason is still there, still out there in the film. So that was Friday the 13th Part 2, and with the Part 1, sorry, and with the success that had, it wasn't long before they did a Part 2, and Part 2 was directed by Steve Miner and starred Amy Steele, John Furious something. And it also had Adrienne King in it, reprising her role as Alice, and Betsy Palmer appearing in a cameo in this as a a ghost. And of course we had Steve Desquires as Jason in this, and he was also played by Warrington Gillett as unmasked Jason, because we do see Jason unmasked in this. Of course, in this one, Jason isn't quite the signature Jason we all know. In this, he has a potato sack on his head with one eye hole, because he just has one good eye, and goes out on a violent rampage, killing to avenge his mother. Now I wonder, right, Jason, did he really die? Did he really drown in 1957? I don't think he did. I think he probably survived, but Pamela Voorhees kept people thinking he was dead, so it can never happen to anyone else. That is my theory. That's what I choose to think. But yes, Jason. So our final girl, played by Amy Steele, yeah, Alice isn't the final girl in this because she gets killed. She gets killed very sudden in the opening scene. But one plot hole that everyone agrees with is, how did Jason go from Crystal Lake to where she was? Because she was in a different state and everything. But I don't know. And we probably never will know. Of course, we all know that memorable scene when the final girl confuses Jason by pretending to be his mother. And he sees her as an illusion in his head. Of course, he keeps her head as well that got cut off, and like Norman Bates, creates the illusion she's still around. Of course, Jason wasn't stupid in this. And I like Jason as well in all the films. I root for the guy. And of course, again, this sequel was successful and probably considered better than its predecessor. And then we got the third film. Yes, 1982, Friday the 13th, Part 3 came out. And again, it was directed by Steve Miner, this time starring Dana Kimmel, Paul Curate or something, and one of the memorable Jason performances, Richard Brooker as Jason. Now in the third film was like made like as a 3D film, but looking at it now, the effects are terrible and that. But probably in 1982 they were considered good, and only certain bits were 3D. I mean, you can still see Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. There's like exclusive DVDs and that you can find. I mean, I've never seen it in 3D. But in this, Jason gained his signature look, the hockey mask and the machete, only he wore a work jacket, some trousers and that. Still, he was evolving to the Jason we all see in Freddy vs. Jason. But yeah, Jason, we do see him unmasked again in this. Again, it's Richard Brooker in makeup. And again, we have a final girl, but of course, Jason, he gets axed in the head in this, and that's how he got his signature slit in the mask. I don't need to keep telling you that. So, 1983, we didn't get a Friday film, but in 1984, we were given a fourth installment, which was said to be the last one, because it was titled Friday the 13th Part 4, The Final Chapter. And was it the final chapter? Absolutely no, it was not the final chapter. Not by a long shot. So, Friday the 13th Part 4, of course, was directed by Joseph Zito, Kimberly Beck, Corey Feldman, young Corey Feldman, of course. And it had probably one of, in my opinion, the second favourite Jason portrayal from Ted White. And in this, it was said to be the final chapter, but it wasn't. No, it was not. No. You see, even though Tommy Jarvis, played by Corey Feldman, hacked Jason to death with his own machete, it was far from over, and it was said to be the final chapter. But about less than a year later, 1985, the series was revived again for a fifth installment, and we got Part 5, which was titled A New Beginning. And this was directed by Danny Steinman and starred John Shepherd as Tommy Jarvis this time. We had Corey Feldman in the opening scene as Tommy, but then it's like we jump a couple of years. They do a bit of a time jump, and this time Tommy's played by another actor because he's older, John Shepherd, and he just didn't look much like Corey Feldman, but you know, I guess they wanted another actor. So Jason is not the killer in this one either. I mean, he appears as an illusion in Tommy's mind in nightmares, played by Tom Morga. But the real killer in this was the Jason Voorhees imposter, Roy Burns, who was a local paramedic who was driven to his motive by the murder of, because Tommy gets taken to this like place called Pinehurst. So again, we're not at Crystal Lake. We're at Pinehurst, a rehabilitation retreat for young troubled teens, and that's where Tommy goes. And you know, Jason haunts him, and we get the Roy Burns, Jason Voorhees, you know, imposter. The difference with that is he has a boiler suit on, he has a machete, and he also has like a hockey mask. But this time, Jason has like red chevrons on his mask. Roy has two on the cheeks there, blue ones, and you know, he goes out on the violent rampage. Now, part 5 I think is a fairly decent slasher. I mean, if you don't think of it as like a Friday the 13th sequel, just like a Friday the 13th inspired film, then yeah, it's quite good. It has a few good kills in it and a good soundtrack and that. And yeah, and I like to think of parts 4, 5 and 6 as the Tommy Jarvis trilogy because it features Tommy Jarvis as the main protagonist. I mean, yeah, he's played by 3 different actors throughout, but still, you know, he's the only person who stands up to Jason. Well, learns to stand up to Jason. And we find out at the end that you know, the Jason Voorhees imposter is Roy Burns, the local paramedic, whose long-lost son was in the camp and was hacked to death by a troubled kid there who was cutting up wood. But yeah, he got away with it. People were getting murdered and stuff, yet the guy who was mainly responsible for Roy's son's death was, you know, pretty much just got locked up. He didn't pay for it with his life. Now, one thing I should say about the Friday series is, you know, I mean, Halloween put things in motion for it, the cliches and that. Don't have sex, don't do drugs, don't do that. But Friday the 13th also made it like that too. You know, sex, nudity and drug use and stuff. And had the cabin in the woods feel, only it was at a camp. So, yes. And of course, 1985, part 5 pretty much ended where Tommy couldn't take the trauma anymore and he, you know, just had a mental breakdown at the end and then sort of put on the hockey mask. Now, I think they were planning to like go in the direction of Tommy becoming the next Jason, but I think people, you know, wanted Jason back, so by the 6th film a year later, titled Jason Lives, Friday the 13th Part 6, we got that installment. This time Tommy Jarvis was played by Tom Matthews, and it also starred Jennifer Cook, and in this one Jason was played by 2 actors, CJ Graham and Dan Bradley. I think that, you know, one of them was a stunt double in that for Jason. Now, Part 6. Part 6 is my favourite installment in the Friday series. I just like it. I like the soundtrack it has from Alice Cooper. I like the kills in this. I like how they brought Jason back in like a Frankenstein way, because the film begins where Tommy wants to go to Jason's grave, dig his body up and destroy it once and for all, and stabs it with a metal rod, and that jolts Jason back to life when lightning strikes, and that's when Jason pretty much becomes undead and a badass, and for me, when Jason truly came into his own. So, yeah, we got Jason back on the kill. This time he was armed with a utility belt, so he didn't just have the machete, he had like a small hunting knife and other things. In this, we also got like, some comedy in there. I mean, with it being a franchise that was already the 6th installment, I think they wanted to put a little bit of comic relief in there, and they did. And of course, the film then ends. Also, at this point, the camp gets renamed Camp Evergreen, I think, and but to Jason, it will always be Camp Crystal Lake. Another thing in the 6th film. I think the 6th film is probably the only one where the camp actually opens and we get the kids in there. Because there are kids in this when Jason's looming around and he's out on the kill. But of course, in the end, Tommy Jarvis puts up one final show for Jason and changes into a rock that holds him down at the bottom of the lake. And I do like that ending where he's at the bottom of the lake. Also, he gets a chunk of his mask cut off with the propeller, which I never noticed till I watched it a second time round, and that's why his mask is worn away in part 7. Of course, it does end where Jason's like at the bottom of the lake with his eye, open, and he's like waiting to be freed again. And of course, by the 7th installment, 1988, again, 1987, no Friday film. 1988, we got Friday the 13th, part 7. The New Blood, which was basically Jason versus Carrie, because our main protagonist in this, Tina Shepard, played by La Park, she had telekinesis. This one was directed by John Carl Butchler or something. I'm butchering the name, no pun intended there. But yes, Jason was back. This time, because he's undead, he'd rotted up. A lot of his skeleton was showing. And when he got unmasked in the finale of the film, I was like, wow, he looks creepy badass. Also, in this, it was Kane Hodder's first ever portrayal as Jason. The film also starred Kevin Blair and Kane Hodder, who played Jason. And Kane Hodder is the longest running Jason to this day. I just really wish he could have had better storylines to work with, but to me, I prefer Kane Hodder Jason and part 6, but it was the late 80s and it was, the slasher genre, and the 80s were the golden age, I think, for slashers. I mean, we had the 70s with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween, but like the last decade, the big horror franchise was Saw. Throughout the 80s, it was Friday the 13th. So, yeah, and of course, Tina puts up a good fight against Jason, and in the end, Jason gets dragged back down to his watery grave. And then, for another year, the series is laying dormant until part 8 came along in 1989. Yes, part 8 was titled Friday the 13th, part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, written and directed by Rob Hedden, starring Jess Jensen, Daggett, Scott Reeves, and also starred Kane Hodder as Jason. Where do I begin with this? First of all, the title and the poster and everything about it was misleading and false advertising because, this one was like Jason Goes to Manhattan. I mean, in the film, he's like going to Manhattan, and about probably 80% of the film is set on the SS Lazarus. And, apparently the lake flows out into the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know how, but it just does. And Jason hitches a ride on that boat and goes out on a rampage, killing everyone on the boat. And then only then, they get on a lifeboat and head to New York, and for the last half an hour, that is when Jason takes Manhattan, and you don't really take it. I mean, what the hell, right? He's like there on Manhattan Alley, on Times Square, and stuff. Yeah, that was false advertising, and it pretty much killed the franchise for a few years. Not only that, but Paramount was kind of embarrassed by Jason at this point. In fact, so embarrassed that they sold the rights to him to New Line Cinema. I mean, New Line Cinema didn't do it any favours, and we'll get to that shortly. But here are a few fun facts about Part 8, though. In Part 8, Jason he storms through a diner, and the guy he threw across the diner into a mirror, that guy was played by Ken Kirzinger, and Ken Kirzinger would later play Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. Did any of you know that? I'm sure you did if you're like me, the family. Okay, so yeah, pretty much Paramount was ashamed of Jason after he made them millions, and they sold the rights to Jason on to New Line Cinema, which of course gave us Freddy Krueger and that in the Nightmare franchise, and the 9th installment was titled Jason Goes to Hell the Final Friday, directed by Adam Marcus, starring a shit ton of people as Jason, which include, starring them as Jason. The film starred John D. LeMay as Stephen Freeman, Corey Keegan as Jessica Kimball, Erin Gray as Diana Kimball, Scott Williams as Duke, and Kane Hodder as Jason. Now, again, this didn't help it. I mean, in this film, Jason's only in 2 sequences, the opening scene and the finale, and then he gets blown up, and in that he jumps from body to body, possessing people and killing them and stuff. And the other way he can be resurrected is through his own bloodline, through a Voorhees. And we find out in this that Diane Kimball, played by Erin Gray, and is his sister, and Jessica Kimball is Jason's niece. And he also has a grandnephew. I'm thinking it must have been from his father's side, because according to his mother Pamela, Jason was her only son. Also, I never mentioned much about Jason's father. What happened to him? Well, there is an alternate ending on the Part 6 book where Elias Voorhees, Jason's father, goes to Jason's grave and finds that he's not there. Back to Part 9. So, yeah, Jason in this goes from body to body, and it's a bit crap. In fact, it is probably, I mean, at least Part 8 was watchable, but this one, a bit daft. I mean, the kills and that were there, but Jason, his physical form wasn't there until the finale. However, though, one thing I do like about Jason Goes to Hell the Final Friday is how it ends when Jason's mask is resurfacing from the sand, and then Freddy's arm with his bladed glove, which was Kane Hodder's arm, which is, I'm sure you know that. Kane Hodder, he was Jason in this, he also was a security guard in the film as well. Outside the morgue when the coroner was performing like an autopsy on him, whatever, the first person he possessed. So with Freddy's arm dragging Jason's mask into hell, that set things in motion for a crossover. And did we get it? Did we heck? Like I discussed in last month's Horror Talk with A Nightmare on Elm Street, both of them sneaked in another installment, and we didn't get Freddy vs. Jason until 2003, 10 years after Jason Goes to Hell. So yeah, 2001 we got the 10th installment, which was titled Jason X. I think the X was meant to represent the Roman numeral 10. This was Kane Hodder's last ever performance as Jason. It was written by Todd Farmer and directed by James Isaac. Kane Hodder was Jason in this, and the only person who kind of made this film watchable was his portrayal of Jason. I mean, the makeup wasn't as good, but boy did he become like a badass cyborg. He looked like that villain out of Power Rangers, whatever his name is. So yeah, he was out, stampeding around a spaceship, and please, why would you take an Earthbound horror franchise and take it to space? It failed miserably with Leprechaun, and it failed miserably with Hellraiser. Alien, though, that's acceptable because it's science fiction, horror and that, but, Friday the 13th, you can't do that. And they want to keep him alive for research at Camp Crystal Lake Research. Also in the opening scene, he kind of got frozen for 400 years, so we go 400 years into the future when some students get Jason out. One of my favourite kills in that is the face scene when he dips a woman's face into like this water that freezes her face up, then he literally smashes her face in. And that. Anyway, the film kind of ends where Jason gets jolted down to Earth. Now, I'm just thinking, how about this right for a theory? The impact of Jason, he travels at such a speed, he goes back in time. That's what I like to think and believe. But of course, Jason X, I think, is like I think Freddy vs. Jason kind of serves as a prequel to Jason X and that. Anyway, finally, after 10 years of waiting, our patience was greatly rewarded with Freddy vs. Jason. The two guys had a weigh-in as well, like boxers, and yeah, we got Freddy and Jason finally fighting together. So, like, one half of the film is like a Nightmare on Elm Street with Jason in, and the second part of the film is like a Friday the 13th with Jason in. And it's all a big fight scene, I mean, what happens is Freddy uses the illusion of Jason's mother and summons Jason to go to Springwood, to Elm Street, to shriek terror into the young teens, so they remember Freddy. Another error I have with that is the teens didn't know anything about Freddy or remember him at all in the Nightmare films, so why? So many plot holes with this, such as Jason being scared of water. I mean, he lived in water, he lived in the lake. Anyway, another thing, this was written by Damien Shannon and Mark Swift and was directed by Ronnie Yu. Ronnie Yu only directed horror films such as The Bride of Chucky, never seen a Child's Play film, and he'd only seen Friday the 13th Part 1 and A Nightmare on Elm Street 1. So they should have definitely got a more experienced director. Secondly, Kane Hodder. Why the hell would you not bring Kane Hodder back? It was a big ambition of his and he never got to fulfill it. I mean, Ken Kirzinger was good as Jason, but Kane Hodder had made the character his own. And that. No, I mean, yeah, I like Ken Kirzinger. I like the look of Jason in this. But yeah, Ken Kirzinger was Jason in this, and it also had the return of Robert Englund in his iconic role as Freddy Krueger. This was the last time Robert Englund ever played Freddy, from what I know. The film starred Monica Keena, singer-turned-actress Kelly Rowland, and I think the only role that I've ever seen her in. It starred also had Scream Queen Catherine Isabel in this, and also Jason Ritter, Brendan Fletcher. Yeah, the film, Freddy vs. Jason, it's a good film, but it could have been done so much better. They could have got a better director and stuff. But even Freddy Krueger, he says that the finale of the film, the fight scene and that, it's like a game of cat and mouse. It's like a classic Tom and Jerry episode, that's what he said. But yeah, I mean, the film got done and made and that. To be honest, I think fans were relieved to see it finally get made. We also, now I was too young to see any of these films when this film came out in 2003. But apparently, people that have seen it, they said that when Jason rised out of the lake at the end, all the fans were cheering Jason on and that, and all the Freddy people were like, no! But then Freddy came out, and Freddy's head was in Jason's hand, and he just like winked at the audience with a final cackle that was heard. So then, I guess they made it a draw. I mean, there is an alternate ending to this, where I think Freddy wins, and like another ending where Jason wins, and then another ending where they go. But I think in the end, they went with the ending where they drew. And Freddy vs. Jason was the last installment of both original both the franchises of Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street, the last installments of the original series to them. In 2009, we got a 2009 reboot, which surprisingly was quite good. It was directed by Marcus Nesbitt and starred Jared Padalecki, Sam Winchester from Supernatural. They also starred Danielle Pennebaker, Aaron Yo, Amanda Ritter, whatever it says, Travis Van Winkle, and of course it had Derek Mears as the iconic Jason. Now this film, it had a 20-minute opening scene. When I was watching it, it just cut and said Friday the 13th. I remember this one coming out because it came out on Friday the 13th of February 2009. And then when it cut to like Friday the 13th, 20 minutes in, seeing the introduction of the film, well, that was just the opening scene. I thought that was amazing. And this film was good. I liked Derek Mears as Jason. There were so many references to the original film, such as the potato sack on his head, and then halfway through the film he puts on the iconic hockey mask. This had elements of the plots. This had plot elements of the first 4 films mashed together in one film. We had the first part of the opening scene where it was like the finale of the original Friday the 13th. Then we got to like another part of the opening scene. It was good. I enjoyed it. They had some creative kills. Wasn't trying to be too much like the original, but still, it was a good enough slasher remake, a decent remake for me. And also, New Line and Paramount came together to make this film with Michael Bay's production company. I just wish Paramount and New Line could have come together to make Freddy vs. Jason, but that's just life. But yeah, Friday the 13th, 2009 remake, I liked. And I have all these films as well on DVD. And that's pretty much it for the film series. I mean, yeah, about 12 films were made within 29 years of this franchise. There were talks of them doing another Friday the 13th reboot, but that kept getting delayed so much that in the end they scrapped it. I've heard rumours and words that they plan to revive the series again. I don't know. I think they should just leave it well enough alone now. The franchise did go on to inspire a series of graphic novels, comic books, including Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, which should have been. There was an alternate ending of Freddy vs. Jason that never saw the light of day, where Freddy and Jason were both in hell and then they came across Pinhead from Hellraiser. Maybe they could have done a crossover with that, but that never happened. That never came to be. That just stayed on paper. But yeah, the franchise inspired a series of comic books, graphic novels, even video games. And I've seen video game reviews and walkthroughs from the Horror Squad's channel, and that they love the franchise just as much as I do. And in the game, it's got all the Jasons from every installment, including an exclusive game Jason designed by Tom Savini. Tom Savini as well, of course, has done many makeup arts, work effects and everything throughout many slasher films, including the original Friday the 13th. In fact, at the end of part 1, when Pamela Voorhees has her head sliced off, it's a fake head, and then her hands are ugh. Those are actually Tom Savini's hands. That's an actual fact. Look it up. And of course, we got an anthology series called Friday the 13th, the series that ran from 1987 to 1990. Of course, it was unrelated to the whole Crystal Lake elements. In fact, the only thing it had in common with the films was the title, because every episode was a different story. To be honest, I don't know why it was called that, but yeah. I mean, at least Freddy's Nightmares was more relatable to the series and the film series and stuff. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it on the Friday the 13th franchise. I hope you've enjoyed this month's Horror Talk, as it is Friday the 13th, the last one of this year. We had one back in April and we have today. So basically now there's no more Friday the 13th until September 2019, next year. So yes. But hey, I'll be back later on YouTube because Last Friday the 13th, I did a live stream where I watched Friday the 13th with Ivan from the Movie Void and Philip from, Philip Bones 812. I can't remember the name of his channel now. Sorry, Phil, but yeah, he joined us in that. He came in and out. But yeah, I was with Ivan. Me and Ivan watched the first film on the live stream, and later today we're doing the live stream again, watching part 2 on the Movie Voice channel. We are watching part 2 live stream. It's about 10 o'clock GMT time, my time, 10 o'clock here, about 11 o'clock for Central European Standard Time for if you're in Germany, Spain and France and that, an hour in front, 11 o'clock. This is in the evening too, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and Pacific Standard Time it's 2 o'clock, because that's where Queenie Todd is, in the Pacific Standard Time Zone. So yeah, check your time zones if you want to be there. I've already told you what time it starts in GMT, CEST and PST time zones. So be sure to check your time zones wherever you live if you want to join us. We'll be watching part 2, commenting throughout it and stuff, and watching it. So yeah, if you want to join us, that is when it is at the Movie Voids channel. So yes. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for this month's Horror Talk. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know, what is your favourite installment in the Friday series? Let me know down in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell if I've not said that already. And also, all my social media links, Facebook group, The Random Horror Madhouse, my Twitter, Instagram, all linked down below in the description. So, happy Friday the 13th to you all, and until next time, don't have nightmares.